Therefore, welcome to kasaderadio.com. And then so November 24th, 2008. Yabo 1203 in Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Your church among for you now, if you're finding a baby now, we'll give you a special welcome to Kasade Radio Online. Which please tune into kasaderadio.com on the net. You could tune in, so you can search for Kasade Radio. Just share it with your friends. Today we have a special person in our midst, a very distinguished person. And when I come around, we're going to talk to this special person here in the studio. Those of you in Ghana, Australia, UK, and what have you, I know today is Saturday, and you're probably preparing for a big party. We say, "Man for woman, Kasimina party be penned whole seriously." The winner, why a crowd? And so before I go on, let me wish you happy welcome to kasaderadio.com. The name is Bobby J. Keep it clean. Dr. Ben Issaka is in the studio, and we give you a special welcome, Dr. Ben Issaka.
Thank you, Bobby, for inviting me to your program. Even though I'm in Calgary for a very short period on a business trip, but since we go way back with you, Bobby, I couldn't say no when you invited me. But before we can go on, let me also give a big shout out to your listeners all over the world, and welcome aboard.
Wonderful. It's got a very nice voice. Dr. Mohammed Ben Issaka is in the house. Now, and before we start now, we would like to know, we'll be out here for the very first time, we'll not know who is Dr. Ben Issaka. Which may a little bit background of yourself.
Okay, Dr. Mohammed Ben Issaka, as you call it. Most people call me Ben. I mean, those who know you, friends, call me Ben. I'm from Ghana, like most of you listening. I was born in Takwa, in the western region, the gold area. Yeah, my parents came from the north, from Sandema in the Upper East region, to be precise. I was born in Takwa. I grew up in Takwa, went to elementary school, and then for secondary school, I went to Ghana Secondary School in Tamale. The one in Tamale.
Not Ghana.
Not the other one. Okay. And from there, so I did O-levels there, and from there I came back closer to Takwa. I went to Takoradi, to GSTS. All giants listening, big shout out to you guys. All right, so I was in GSTS from 79 to 81.
Okay.
And then thereafter, those days, there used to be what we call a COMSO. Everybody trying to get out.
To get in.
Yes, and so I ended up going to Saudi Arabia after sixth form.
I see.
Okay, where I went to study petroleum engineering. Okay, so
okay, and then so from Saudi today, you came to Calgary for some while because you used to be here with us, a very influential person. What brought you to Canada?
Okay, so in Saudi I studied petroleum engineering. So I did an undergraduate degree in petroleum engineering, and those days I went there in 1982. There were quite a few Ghanaians already there. The Saudi government was very kind enough to give us scholarships.
Okay.
So there were quite a few Ghanaians there. And so I studied petroleum, graduated in 1985, worked a little bit for 3 years, I believe, and then decided I needed to go for advanced degree.
Okay.
So I applied for a master's degree at the University of Alberta, in Edmonton, Alberta. For those of you who don't know, it's one of the coldest places you can ever go. So imagine me coming from Saudi Arabia with all these high, temperatures, 50-degree Celsius summer temperatures, coming all the way to Edmonton, Canada. But, as Ghanaians want to be, we'll survive anywhere we go.
That's true.
Yeah, so I came to Edmonton for the Masters in Petroleum Engineering. Ended up staying on and doing a PhD in petroleum engineering. And then during the period of the PhD, I decided to look at the opportunities for immigration. So I applied for the landed immigrant whilst completing the PhD. So got the landed immigrant, so residency in Canada. And then graduated in '96 with a PhD, and then came down to Calgary to work for a company. That's when I met Bobby the first time. So this was... Yes.
I see. Yes. Very good. Now, there are people around, you may not probably see yourself as a role model, but because of the extensive, things that you've done, and those of us who know you very well, we can attest to, the scholarly papers you presented, a symposium, you've lectured all over the place. Could tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So currently, I kind of cut the story short. Okay, I lived in Calgary here, worked for 3 years. During that period, actually going back to Edmonton when I was doing the PhD, we had a group. There was a fellow from Sierra Leone, Augustin Marat, who set up a program called Canadian Educational Rainbows something to help black high school or elementary school kids in the system. So we used to get together on weekends, on Saturdays, to give them additional tutorials. Okay, so all the black communities, Caribbeans, Africans in Edmonton used to come to this program. Okay, and then when I moved to Calgary here, mostly Calgary, the work took over most of my time. So I didn't do much community work until '98 when I went back to Saudi Arabia to work for the national oil company in Saudi Arabia called Saudi Aramco. And during this period, I'm an engineer by training, but I'm at heart a teacher.
Right.
I like to impart knowledge. Okay. So even in Saudi Arabia, I actually started teaching part-time on voluntary basis to the same university I got my undergraduate degree from, because they were quite close. Right. And along the way, in Ghana at KNUST, they started a petroleum program. This was before oil was discovered. I guess they had a foresight. And of course, as you can imagine, a petroleum program in Ghana those days, getting faculty, to come and teach was tough.
Yeah.
So I volunteered. So sometimes I would take my whole 1 month vacation and go and teach the whole semester course in 1 month. I felt sorry for the students, by the way, but
because once you leave, they go back to, yeah.
So I will say I always try to encourage volunteerism. To give out whatever you get.
Yeah. That's very nice. Very, very, very nice of you. So Tifon Samutia, Dr. Ben Issaka is in the house, and we're listening to the things that he's done. I know he's prodigiously hardworking and prodigiously knowledgeable. That's how I got to know him, because of some of the papers he presents. I also went to University of Alberta, so we are from the same line. Tell me, there are people who we've had a lot of talk about maltreatment meted out to domestic workers in Saudi. Now you've lived there, so you probably can share a little bit light on that work, because I get calls from people from Ghana. They have these agencies recruiting them to go, and I say, hey, hold on, because you may go and not come back. So how can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yes, we have all been reading, hearing of these issues that happen to our young girls who go out in search of greener pastures, so to speak. Yes, and some of the stories you hear are true. Some, like with any place in the world, there are good and bad parts.
Okay.
So some do go and they get very good families to work with, and they will swear about the kindness of the Saudis. And then some who are unlucky will also find the other side, and yes, they can be really, really maltreated. And so, yes, some of the stuff you hear is true.
True.
Yes, but there are others too who, are lucky. They find very good families. Yes, but by and large, I would say there's probably more unlucky ones than lucky ones. So if you are,
the law of averages.
Yes. So it's something that, you can never say don't go, But I would say go with your eyes wide open. I know sometimes our girls are deceived by telling them that they are being hired to go and be a secretary or do something, and then they get there and it's domestic work. Those two are also there. I don't know how much of that happens to the Ghanaians, but I've heard of that with the Kenyans and the Ethiopians and the rest like that.
How big is the Ghanaian, population in the city that you live in?
Okay, I live in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia. The city itself is Dhahran. Dhahran is basically the headquarters of the Saudi oil industry. And most of the Ghanaians who live there are more professional. So there are teachers in universities, and then a bunch of us with the oil company. I would say in my company in Saudi Aramco, there are probably about 30 Ghanaian families.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that are there. But the Nigerians are more than us.
Everywhere.
That's right.
By virtue of their population, anyway.
But we do have a dynamic community, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do have it. We do celebrate the Ghana Independence Day annually, where most of the time we invite the ambassador, Ghana's ambassador in Riyadh will come over to our side. We are like about 400 kilometers from Riyadh, the capital.
For capital, right.
Okay, so we do that. In fact, last year we decided to take it out to Bahrain. Bahrain is an island nation just about 30 kilometers from where we are. And so we decided for a change to take it over there because there is a good Ghanaian community in Bahrain too. Yes.
Good. So, Tifo, we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, we're going to ask Dr. Ben Issaka what his, line of thought is about the petroleum industry in Ghana and the way forward. So, stay with us as we go around, and for those of you who just joined us, we are on kasaderadio.com. Okay, this is the place to be, the most frequented frequency in the whole universe. Here, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we are here in the house. It's in Amafo. Let me take a quick break, and I'll get back to you in a jiffy. Okay, all right. Okay, Dr. Ben Issaka, okay, we're back here. Now, I asked a little bit, about your take on the oil industry in Ghana. Where do you see it and the way forward? What do you think can be done to enhance what we have?
The oil industry in Ghana is relatively young because our first discovery was, I think, 2007, thereabout. Yes, and since then it has picked up quite a bit. The oil price drop in the 2014 coming down kind of slowed things down a little bit. But I'm happy to say on the Ghanaian front, really things didn't slow down that much. It was probably our territorial dispute with the Ivory Coast or the Côte d'Ivoire that probably put in some degree of uncertainty, but that since that matter was adjudicated in favor of Ghana, everything is just opened up. So starting with the Jubilee, that back in, I think, 2011 or so, when they started producing from there, currently I think there are 3 more additional fields that have come on. And so, yes, the future is bright. Of course, it's all dependent on the price of oil and gas. And actually what we are beginning to find in abundance in Ghana is gas also.
Also, yes.
Okay, and how to use this gas. And for example, in generating electricity and all that, that's currently going on. So the future is bright, if you ask me about that. Maybe the other side that we need to look at is, okay, currently, yes, the industry is opening, but it's still largely foreigners who are running it. Okay. And there are obvious reasons. They have the expertise. We don't have that yet. But I'm also happy to say, well, there are petroleum schools that are coming up. In the beginning, it was only KNUST that was teaching petroleum engineering. But since then, the University of Mines in Tauqua has been doing that. This university in Koforidua also, All Nations, yes, also has a petroleum program. And I believe the Takoradi Technical University is also looking at the petroleum program. But what I probably will add on this is that, yes, a lot of petroleum engineers are being, brought into the system. But our system still has some ways to go before it can absorb all this.
Yes.
However, it is the technical side probably that we need a lot more right now than the engineers.
I see.
Okay. And in that regards, places like Takoradi Technical Institute are on the right track. And then there is the Regional Maritime University in Tema that also has a technical program. That is looking at. I know that they do have a good petroleum engineering laboratory. So I believe down the line, the future will be good. KNUST, just to add that I forgot, KNUST had some funding back in 2011, thereabouts. They built a state-of-the-art petroleum engineering laboratory.
Wow.
I can tell you that because
Aramco.
Myself and two colleagues, got together and actually designed the labs and, recommended the equipment to be bought and everything. And they put it together very well. And since then, we've gone back and actually given training to the lab technicians and the lab managers and some of the students there, which we did actually last year. So yes, we have the resources now, if I can put it. And I think the future is bright. That's
we're going to open up the phone lines for those of you who want to ask Dr. Ben Issaka, questions, or at least, put your 2 cents worth into the program. Our WhatsApp, line is +1 587 436 1920. I repeat, +1 587 436 1920. If you're calling from Ghana, it's +233 244 383354. I repeat, +233 244 383354. That's the main WhatsApp lines that you can call in, and then you can ask any questions to Dr. Now, Dr. Ben, you're so passionate about petroleum engineering. Are all your kids also in the petroleum engineering? We never got to that yet. Let's now give us a digression.
Should I say, unfortunately?
Which takes precedence?
No, actually, I have 3 girls, but none of them went into engineering.
Wow.
Yes, I have 3 girls, but these millennials, they want to chart their own course. But I'm happy to say they are doing very well. Okay, in their
what professions are they?
Okay, my oldest Fauzia is in international development. She's a gender specialist, social protection, those things, and she's been working in Ghana actually since 2011.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. She had both undergraduate and master's degrees in Canada here, but moved back to Ghana. And she's been working in this field since 2011. She was working with the British government in their international, they call them the Department for International Development, DFID. She worked with them for 5 years. Now she's an independent consultant living in Accra and consulting in the same field.
So she's making good money.
Yeah, so if you want to look at it, the end, I guess, justifies the means. She's doing what she likes. And,
right.
She's living off it. So
yeah, that's cool. Very good. Yeah. I always say that, the greatest reason for achieving success is to be able to enjoy it. And that's why we struggle for the things we do. So I'm glad she's happy. And you say you have 3, so this is 1.
Yeah, so that's the oldest. Okay, the middle one, Sharifa, she was the one we thought was going to be the engineer. Okay, because she was versatile in everything. But so she went to university here in Canada also. Did sciences for undergraduate, and as usual, Ghanaian parents, medicine or something.
Medical or suicide.
In the 3rd year, she went to Ghana to volunteer for a group of ophthalmologists, eye doctors, who were going around the country, doing volunteer work, treating people's eye problems. She volunteered with the group and was kind of their official photographer, videographer. She has a passion for
photojournalism.
Yes.
All right.
And she came back and said, to hell with science.
I'll find my calling.
Yes. So she's in the media, or this is what you call new media.
Media, right.
So as a result, she decided to push it a bit further. So she went to New York and studied media studies.
Okay.
But she's back in Accra now, and she's into the media landscape, doing hair stuff.
Wow.
Yes. And then the youngest, Janan, she just completed university also in Toronto, York University. She did communication studies.
Hey, so in the last 2 hours into communication.
Yes.
I see.
And she's been working with fashion houses as a publicist. And so she's mainly based in Toronto, but goes back and forth to Accra. As we speak now, actually, she's also in Ghana with the other sisters. They are pursuing other interests also, including trying to promote African fashion wear to the outside. So they have a company they call Kofi. Okay. That
go home.
Go home.
Okay.
Okay. That manufactures currently. They have something that looks like a house robe. And we thought house robes are used in the house, but apparently these millennials have a different concept. So these robes can be used outside, on the beach, even in the streets.
Wow.
So, and they are designing this with batiks, and so they get the material, do the tie dye, sew them.
All locally made.
All locally made.
Very
yes.
Good.
All locally resourced.
That's the part I'm interested in. Yes.
Yes, and they are selling some online, and then others also other shopping outlets in Accra. Okay. So that's some of the new stuff they've started doing, in addition to everything that they are doing.
Okay, so for those of you listening to us, this is KasadeRadio.com. We have Dr. Ben Issaka in the house right now. We have the phone lines are open. If you need to ask him any question, the floor is open now. So just call the number again. The WhatsApp number is +1 587 436 1920. +1 587 436 1920. In Ghana, it's +233 244 383354. Dr. Ben Issaka is in the house. Now, as we wait for calls to come in, if there are any. Now, the question I want to ask you is, if somebody is confused and wants to take a vocation of some sort, would you recommend petroleum engineering, and why?
If somebody wants to take petroleum engineering, actually, in fact, this question you've asked me has been asked before. But you are asking a hypothetical question. Okay. But I can say it's been asked in real. Okay. My wife has a nephew who went to fancy him, very brilliant chap, got all the good grades, qualified to go to KNUST. And he was all sure, at least there is a petroleum engineer in the, family, so to speak, so wanted to do petroleum. But guess what? I didn't advise him to do petroleum. No, that's a big admission, but that's true. I didn't advise him to do petroleum
Was it because...
And there's a reason.
Okay, at the time it wasn't,
No, this is... The guy is still, I think it's going in... He's in his second year now, going into third year. So it's not that far back. It's recent.
Okay.
Now, reason why I said that, because I have seen situations also that makes me a bit uncomfortable. In the beginning, in the euphoria of our oil discovery. These petroleum schools were opening up. KNUST, when I went to teach the first time in 2008, the class of third year students that I taught, they were 42.
Okay.
When I went back in 2013 to teach final year students, there were 72 students in the class. And I remember I got into the lecture hall and it was quite big, and I was wondering how many. So I asked the guy sitting in front, I said, how many students are registered for this course? He said 72. And, somehow...
you were taken aback.
I was taken aback, and it just came out of me. I said, and you guys all expect to get jobs? And the students said, oh, sir, how can you say that? I said, but it's true. Our industry is too young. Okay, our industry is too young to absorb all of you engineers.
Right.
Okay, so in fact, I remember that time I was advising them. I said, yes, I know all of you are looking at jobs, but I will advise the people who can to actually think about going for advanced degrees. Okay, if you can, go for advanced degree, because the industry cannot absorb all of you at this time.
Okay, when you say go for advanced degree, are you saying still within the petroleum?
Yeah, still within, because these are the ones who are in the petroleum. I digressed a little bit, but I'll come back to the question that you asked. Okay, so these are the ones in petroleum. And fast forward, of that class that graduated in 2013, I can tell you, well, for national service, they all got placements. But after national service, many of them were dropped. And I can tell you some who got first class who actually have been forced to, switch careers because there was no job.
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings me back to the advice I gave the young man, that I would rather he does chemical engineering.
Okay.
And the reason was a chemical engineer can branch out and work in the petroleum industry.
All right.
But if you are a petroleum engineer, you are locked into
the
Okay.
That
so
makes sense.
That's why I will not advise everybody to go into petroleum. Yes, we need some core petroleum engineers, but in fact, if you look at the industry in Calgary here, when I graduated with PhD and I came down here to work, the bulk of practicing petroleum engineers in the industry in Calgary did not have a bachelor degree in petroleum. It was from other sciences and other engineering. You learn on the job.
Definitely.
You can learn on the job. So the industry is flexible enough to take other engineering disciplines in there. And so I will advise, if you are qualified and you want to do it, and you want to stay within the industry environment, then go for something like chemical engineering.
Okay.
And if you are still passionate about it, you can get into petroleum. Yes.
But if you have a higher degree,
yes,
the propensity is there to get a core job in the petroleum.
That's right. So the petroleum industry absorbs a lot of
people.
Okay, all types of engineers.
Wow.
The process engineers, who are mostly chemical ones, even mechanical and civil engineers, because we have plants to build, So all these people are employed in that industry.
So for somebody getting into the field, with a projection, or they want to go in there to make good money, what would be the average expected, income that they should expect?
Depending on which country you are working in. Okay. If you're working in Canada, I've been away from the Canadian petroleum industry for 20 years, so I'm not entirely sure of the... However, there were times, because the Society of Petroleum Engineers International does annual salary reviews. Okay. And yes, there were times where petroleum engineers would rake about $120,000 a year. Okay. In the Middle East, of course, it goes a bit more. Okay, it can go probably 150.
So Middle East, here we come.
Okay. Yeah, and so it depends on the area or the region of the world that you are working in. But certainly it's a rewarding industry. We have the ups and downs. It's very reactive to the oil price. Generally, when the oil price goes down, they tend to fire people. And then when it picks up, then they are scrambling, trying to get engineers. So if you don't have the stomach for the ups and downs, then think of another industry. But when it's up, it's very rewarding. I can say that.
Very low. So is it very easy to get employment in the let's say in Saudi with a petroleum engineer?
Currently, it's not that easy because yes, the industry started to pick up again. Again, it's just recovering from the deep depression of the 2014 coming down to 2016, but it started to go back up again. So when the price went down, even the service companies downsized. Luckily for us in Saudi, there wasn't much of a downsizing because our production is huge, and a lot of it is sold on long-term contracts. So it didn't really affect our daily output that much. But the service industry is really slimmed down quite significantly. Yes.
I see. What parting, advice would you give to Ghanaians in Calgary? Since you've been here and you've known a lot of people here already, you are here on a business trip.
Business trip. Since I left 20 years ago, I come back once in a while, either on vacation or on business because I'm still in the industry, the oil industry, and Calgary is the center of the oil industry in Canada. Yeah. So I will say, in terms of advice to the community at large, or
to the community at large, and then we can narrow it particularly to Ghanaians.
Yeah. I would say for our community, the spirit of volunteerism, trying to help, because what happens is, especially our kids growing up in this environment, yes, I left 20 years ago, but I don't think the dynamics have changed that much. Right. The external influences are quite heavy, and we need more role models within us to, stand up for our kids to emulate.
Well, that's why we brought you here. So.
Okay. so that's one thing, and also I would say in general to us Ghanaians who are outside, I know that concept has changed quite a bit compared to our predecessors, the ones who preceded us in immigrating. That is, everybody thinking that we are just here for a brief period, we'll finish and go back home. A lot of times we don't end up going back home.
Yeah,
so the one thing I would say is wherever you find yourself, make sure you make it like your home. If it happens that, yes, you go back, great. I would say I'm pretty lucky. I have, of my 3 girls, 2 are already working in Ghana. A lot of it I contributed to encouraging them to go. Yeah. But I guess maybe not everybody has that flexibility or luxury. Okay, to be able to do that. But if you can, that is great. In my case, actually, I was encouraging them to go for my own selfish reasons. That I knew that I'm planning to retire in Ghana, and I just wanted them to be familiar enough with the environment so that in the future, when I'm an old man settled in Ghana, they will come and visit. But it turned out that actually they have preceded me to going back to settle.
They know a good thing when they see it. Yes, they know a good thing when they see it.
Yeah.
So, we've been here for within 20 years. You go back and forth. So when are you coming to visit us again? As a roving ambassador,
coming to visit, I think. Going forward, I think I'll be coming here more often. I'm beginning to like the city more than. Yeah, actually, when I left, I think The first time, it took me 3 years to come back. Then it was like 10 years. And I never stepped forward. Okay. But the last couple of years, I've been coming back, and I'm liking the city. And hopefully, I will keep visiting it more. But I don't see myself coming back to settle here anymore, especially given what's happening in Ghana right now in the industry. I think I can contribute more to the industry in Ghana than coming back here. But Calgary will always be home to me.
Wow. Okay, wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Dr. Ben Issaka, our visiting professor, philanthropist, a man who exerts volunteerism. He does a lot for the community and for all mankind. It is a pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is KasadeRadio.com. We'll come back in a minute to wrap up.
You wrote me off, but God called me in. I may be down, so you say I'm a man. Meaning, I'm Martinelli. Or come me with Miss Rodonha. Or Dimachi, I'm bound to win. Empty shot, not shame with you. Cause I'm a work in progress. Oh, yeah, me went to my home. Or I me went to my one, no carry move. Meaning, I'm Martinelli. Maria, Pay, Casaba. And show me home, no, I won't fear. If I'm in preference, if you carry me, that's a matter say I can swear. I've been far. And show me home, I won't fear. If I'm in preference, if you carry me, that's a matter say I can swear. I've been far. I say, I'm in some shira, the money pay on the phone, or bread you man fabbing kahoo, or surushira one, now where she round. The pep guarantee me say no. Sem kame kuade nim mede me watch no pampi ninja in the muda open me bonia opebo back to sender they optimi mono ni me time for one or you don't send it oh makame we be surotom odimechi I'm bound to win oh yeah me watch you my home obey me watch you my one quarry moon minim nya me amazine dinti maria ya be ya kasipa and show me home my bonfia. That's the much I say I can swear. I've been far. Hey, and let me home, my bothia. And help me, friends, and you marry me. Cause though my beginnings might be little, greater is he that lives in me. And let me home, my bothia. And help me, friends, and you marry me. That's the much I say I can swear. I've been far. You wrote me off, but God called me in. I may be down, so you say I'm a man. Meaning, Yamia Martinelli. Or can me women, Surodom hair. Or Dimachi, I'm bound to win. It's a shed, not shall be beyond. Cause I'm a work in progress, what's it? I am a watch to my home. Or I am a watch to my one of Parimu. Meaning, Yamia Martinelli.
I'm on for yes, this is Bobby J on KasadeRadio.com with Dr. Ben Issaka in the house. We've been discussing his progression, the trajectory from Ghana to Saudi Arabia to Canada, back to hey Charlie, roving ambassador. He's in the house. And therefore, we also need to express, that those of you who've been calling, we may have some technical difficulty on our WhatsApp line. So if we haven't been able to respond to you, please forgive us. We'll try and remedy that in due time. So, Dr. Ben Issaka, now, on the final analysis, there are those of us who want to live here and also do things back home. You've had a privilege or the latitude to do both at will. What advice or would you give people who are thinking on those lines?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I said a little earlier that, you know, Bibianiha, wherever you are, you make it your home the best that you can. But at the same time, we know that our home is home, the original home. And whatever we can do to help develop our country, it's definitely welcome. So yes, I do encourage people to look back and see whatever they can do, whether invest, you know, get into real property. However, we all know the issues that we have in such things. Because you are away, other people are going to look after it for you. So those challenges will be there. But that's not to say it can never be done. You just have to, you know, exercise patience, look carefully. You will find a few people that you can trust that will you'll be able to work with.
And they will still do you bad. In the foreign house, you will still make some net gain.
That's right. Yeah, so we should never forget, you know, the people back home are doing their best, so we should do whatever we can to help it.
I see. Okay. So, listeners, this has been your host, Bobby J, on KasadeRadio.com. And today we had the privilege of talking to Dr. Ben Issaka, our own Ghanaian, you know, a man who's, you know, intellectually astute, geographically mobile, and